You know, I think I have related to you that last year I was invited to a certain very big famous temple in China, in Beijing, and I felt in a way quite inspired, I must say, encouraged when I saw what they are doing. You know, they are training very highly intelligent young monks and nuns, and many with PhD, and they are scientists and mathematicians from Beijing University and Tsinghua. That phenomenon has never been there, and these people now, they are all focused in one temple. So I saw that they are doing good work. They are talking about translation project, talking about producing a new edition of the Buddhist canon, the Tipitaka, and they invited me for consultation, and I went there. And I found that I spoke for only 1 hour, a little bit over 1 hour, and I was in a hurry to come back that day from Beijing. I had to go to the airport, and people seem very inspired. You know, you know me, and I speak from my heart, and say many things that came straight from my heart. And then the young monks and nuns were, and also lay people, a lot of lay people, like a huge group of volunteers. That's why they are successful. They escorted me to the airport, and they gave a big van because many people wanted to go with me in the airport. And then on the van, and as I got down, as I was walking into the airport, and all this, every single minute they didn't miss. They wanted to ask me serious things from their heart also. They seemed inspired, and I felt sorry that I couldn't give them very concrete advices. But that is one part that inspired me. But there are other things that worry me there, because I came to know that you know, they look up to the West. They look up to modernization, and their teacher, I think he is a great man. He's a good person. Even today, I still say he's a good person. Was trying to propagate Buddhism and trying to train monks and nuns in a modern way. And one of his motto is that today we have to learn from the West. We have to follow the Western model, right? Talking about modern Buddhism, modern Chinese Buddhism, and that kind of mottos. I felt worried that it seemed to be going too far, too much. I know that they're going to have problems, you know. You see, I think basically a good person, good monk, and intelligent monk, very, at least I think he's a good speaker, you know, and he could inspire these young people. In a country like China, you know, where Buddhism is not yet open enough, he was able to inspire these young people to be monks and nuns. You know, they really dedicated their life. But you see, I understood that they spend all their time taking part in building up the temple. So I was thinking, how do they find time to meditate and to think about the Buddha and to worship? Then I realized that they show me, you know how they do their devotion session, the chanting of sutra. I think I mentioned it very lightly once. They are using iPod. You know what I mean? They have iPad. My technology is not good enough. They're using iPad, you see, and they are very proud of that. You know why? Because they have the top brains. The young people, they have all new ideas, and their master encouraged them to utilize their technological skill and knowledge and to improve the temple. So suddenly the temple becomes a highly technologically advanced temple, right? So when they are chanting, they don't use traditional books, printed book. They use iPad. Everybody had an iPad. They show me pictures also, their pictures. Then I was thinking, well, this is very artificial. I wouldn't like it. Of course you can argue, oh, it's convenient now, it's modern time, and that's how the West is improved. But I think we must, as I told you, we must always question about what is progress, what is success. We cannot imitate the West. If we do that, we are going to bring their problem into our situation, and we also fall into problems. So these are things worry me, and they build a robot even, because they're so intelligent. They build a robot, right? And the robot can answer questions. You ask them questions, what is Buddhism, and what is meditation. So they are very proud. It was all on they show me that it was on the website. See, many things like that, and their system of of organizing their so-called retreats also are highly computerized. You apply through the computer. You are registered through a certain system. You are assigned a room like in the most modern, maybe 5-star hotel system. Then I don't say that they indulge in luxury. No, don't misunderstand me. I think they are good, but their system. I'm talking only about the system. It's all based on modern Western technological system. They're very proud that this is how they differ from other temples. Yeah, it has been going on for some time. And this thing very worried me. Especially also I read that their master has talked so much, as I said, about learning from the West in order to modernize Buddhism in China. And when you do this, and then the monks are all busy working out computerization, working out how to build a robot, and building non-stop, expanding non-stop the temple. I think they will very quickly lose their faith. They would forget their mission, their spiritual mission. Yeah. So these are the things also. While I'm inspired by them and I praise them, at the same time I begin to be quite worried. I leave you to understand the rest. And the way that these young monks and nuns at that day and lay people, they're all PhD or they dropped out, they didn't finish their PhD, they came to, and then one was a professor also, I think. They wanted to ask so many questions, so serious. I knew that they are wanting, they are searching for spiritual guidance, And even I talk about I advise on their translation project, and I said that, they are very gifted linguistically. They know many languages. Apparently, they published a bilingual website. I've never seen that website, I was told, but I've been shown their publication based on the website. You see, huge volumes of their master's sermon translated into at least 5 or 6 languages. So whenever a visitor goes, the visitor will be gifted a couple of copies of this. So they are very proud of that. They think they are so advanced, And then they are sending out nuns and monks, especially nuns, to America, to other places. I think that would be the beginning of their fall. Now, But then isn't it a great pity when modern China, communist China, can have a place like this, a Buddhist temple, where these highly intelligent young people of the next generation, that's what I hope to do, to train them in Buddhism, inspired by a master and dedicate their life to all this thing. But anyway, I was telling them that that to do a translation project or editing project of Buddhist scriptures, the knowledge of language is far from being enough, and that they must know Buddhism enough to begin with, doctrines to begin with, you see. And then also, they must honestly learn Pali and Sanskrit, especially Sanskrit, I told them. And I think young people, they seem to very much agree with me. How much they could do, I don't know. Then the other thing is that I knew that their master was so busy with official work. Actually, a lot of these work are not in the temple, not about the temple. It's about, Chinese association, about political committees, and all these things. None of which I have the slightest interest, personally, for me. That's why I want to always repeat and emphasize that I don't go for politics. And political involvement by monks and nuns will bring to the downfall of themselves and of Buddhism. But people have different ideas. No, now you are backward, you are out of date. If you don't do that, you must go with society, you must go with the country, you must go with their parties and all these things. I don't want to say anything pro or against their parties or their system. This is not my business. I'm interested only in the Dhamma. But I feel, they have great things even in their system. I admire them. I can't say that I blame their system fully, but nor can I go out to join them and to eulogize them. You see, I eulogize only one thing. What is that? The Dhamma, the Buddha's teaching. Yeah. So when the teacher, now he had great idea. I think that must be remembered and must be appreciated. He had great idea to want to improve Buddhism, to want to promote the status of Buddhism. But how can someone like this, who is busy without external work, and secular involvement so much to such an extent, always thinking how can I line up with certain organizations, certain committees, and how can I arouse their interest or support it. I can understand to some extent they are restrained and they find themselves in a very difficult situation. If you are completely alienated from the system, you cannot even do any work for Buddhism. Then I can understand. I feel sorry, actually. Nothing I can do. But on the other hand, we have to be very mindful. You see, if your center is not the Dharma, if your heart is not in the Dharma, it doesn't matter how good the systems are, how successful you are externally. Oh, I have all this support, all the big VIP are with me, all the ministers are with me, even the president is with me. Finally you fall. In Sri Lanka also we have seen like that, political monks. I have some very good friends who are political monks also. But I found that actually some of them, one monk particularly, actually I knew him personally since his Buddhist institute, that is Pirivena age, before he went to the university, because I knew his master. His master was one of my best friends. His master was, finally, when he retired, he was associate professor of Sanskrit. I told you that monk was a very extremely sincere, very, very sincere monk, very inspiring. And his disciple also a very sincere person. But then, for some reason, he went into politics. Today is politically very influential. I think he is still very sincere. but I don't agree with their approach. All these are influenced from modern Western society, modern Western value. Look at the West. Because originally, traditionally, Buddhist monks were not involved in politics, right? And the Buddha never cited any political parties. Of course, the ministers, the emperors went to him for advice. He gave advice according to the Dhamma, right? And I can't understand, personally for me, I don't think that, actually I don't think that it's right to take part in party politics for monks to do that. But in Sri Lanka, I've seen that although they are not the majority, it's still actually, very fortunately, in a conservative country in Sri Lanka, they are still a very small minority, but they can make a lot of noise, they can create a lot of trouble. And if you read the newspapers today in Sri Lanka, you know that all the troubles started by them, and people begin to lose faith in Buddhism because of them. So, coming back to the example of this temple and their master, I still have my respect and sympathy for him, but I knew that they were heading for downfall. If he spent all his time just pleasing and, you know, aligning with political personalities and so on, even though, of course, as I said, I knew that to some extent you cannot be extreme. If someone asks you to have dinner and lunch with them and they want to support Buddhism, not necessarily financially, but in some important way, I think you need to go with them also. I can understand that, but there must be a bottom line, and they seem to have lost the bottom line. Yeah, so it has led to, I believe, many problems, and some of the very best disciples left that place and now are complaining also. One, I don't name him. He wrote to me about more than 1 month ago, actually. I didn't realize that, but he was trying to translate a book from English into Chinese. Very interesting. That book is about the corruption of one monastery in Sri Lanka. So he has translated nearly all, and he wanted to show me one thing. He wanted to ask my advice. He wanted to get my opinions, and I thought of advising him, but then I stopped. I didn't reply to it. The person wrote to me 2 times. I don't name him. Now, he was one of those who got PhD from engineering. I think he got a PhD in some field in nuclear physics or nuclear engineering. But I was worried. You know, even that, let me tell you that if you happen to have read that book, which is available in English, I also feel very sorry. That monk, if I ever have a chance to meet him, I would advise him. He looked, the author looked like a monk from that temple, right? And you know, everything, he was searching and seeking each and every negative thing in that temple. And the temple is a forest temple. I went to that temple before several times, yeah, and I knew some of them. I knew that teacher. I don't want to name that place also, but I didn't see anything that he described like that. Some of the things described may be true. After all, it's a human society, you know. It may be true, but I think it's over-exaggerated. Everything, you know, is looked from the negative angle. It's like he's saying basically everything is neurotic. Everything is, everybody there is, every master there, including the famous meditation teacher, is mentally unbalanced, and all this kind of description. You see, so and so did this thing, broke the first precept. So and so did that thing, for second precept. Very, very serious. And then, in the midst of all this, that person tried to just show that he is the only sane person, right? He's the only sane person from that temple. You can feel that tone in the whole book. Everybody is insane. Yeah. Then also he talks of so many things, even including the way they preach, and he try to fight for it. This is wrong, that is wrong. If you want to show certain corruption, maybe financial, it's small little thing, you know, that some monks asking for what is that? For what is that thing for listening to music? MP3. Now you people have something more advanced than that. From some Chinese monk who went there from it. Do you really have to dig out those things to show the corruption of that temple? I think this person is very unbalanced himself. He has an agenda in his heart. Either he has some grievances, you know, he might have been kicked out. If he had not been kicked out, he had grievances himself, and he left that organization and he tried to say things. But the thing is, when he wrote like this, he harmed not only that temple, not only his own tradition, he harmed the whole Buddhist tradition. I would never agree with that. I know that in Hong Kong there is one organization championed by one lady, yeah, who thinks that she is a good Buddhist and trying to show corruptions in the temples and all these things. I will never agree to that way of doing things. Even if I agree that some of the things she said may be correct. Anyway, I was just saying that monk from that PhD monk from that Beijing temple also wrote to me and showed me. I didn't know other things, what was to come, but in a way I'm glad that I didn't reply to that letter. Well, later on I saw his name in the last couple of days, and it was the same person. In a way, it is a tragedy. Now there are many reasons. Whatever happened now in those cases. One is the failure to understand that according to Buddhism, we cannot idealize a human. Humans are full of faults. Humans all have, until you become an arahant, right? You still have raga, dosa, moha. We still have craving, hatred, ignorance. And those who paint a negative picture of others, they themselves are not free from this. Like that lady, again I don't want the name, you know better than I even forgot her name, very famous. I was wondering, what is the agenda? Why is she doing this? Outwardly she's saying, yeah, I want to protect Buddhism, you know, and so on. But also one thing I noticed that all her protests are lined up with a certain political, you know, parties, or a certain line of parties. That also itself is bad enough, you know. I don't inquire into their political party, as I said, right or left or anything, but there seems to be some agenda there. Anyway, that person might ask a question. She is a Upasika, she claims that she's a good Buddhist and all these things. Yeah? Is she perfect? Recently, somebody sent me something about her and showing her background and how she got messed up with so many men and actors, and I think you know all this story, right? So many things. And sometimes I got annoyed too much when people send over too much. But I'd like to know some of the things also, out of my concern for the future of Buddhism. Definitely not. You know, if she can expose others, others can expose her also. I think recently it looked like she's a little bit quiet. Yeah, I don't know what the reason is, but I did see that others were digging out her past. Some of the things sent to me. So anyway, coming back to that example, I'm more concerned with the Sangha than that lady. Yeah? And I think she has a lot of, such a person has a lot of psychological problems themselves. They must have mindfulness, talk about mindfulness, you see. And so first thing is that the failure to understand that Akane Buddhism, we are all imperfect, whether we are monks or nuns or lay people. And we cannot judge someone from, especially from external happenings. The personal heart you must know. That's more important. It's not easy to know the person's heart. Huh? We have seen examples in the history of Buddhism, in the biography. We saw some monks are apparently judged to be not behaving properly and transgressing, but they turn out to be extremely sincere people. We have seen in history of religion in general that some of the most disturbed people actually are most religious, and they end up as spiritual leaders. And William James, one famous professor called William James, you can look him up. He was a psychologist and very famous, not of this century, quite some time ago. When I was young also I read one of his books, and it's called The Varieties of Religious Experiences, I think, where he collected case studies of religious leaders. Now one of the observation he made was actually some of these leaders actually, from one perspective, they are neurotic, and they have their own psychological problem. On the other hand, they really are great people, and they eventually became great leaders of their religious sect. They become religious teachers of others. So he collected cases like this, you see. So that's one thing. The other thing is that a proper understanding of not only that part of it, that human nature, but also about what Buddhism is about. What is meant by, what do we want, what is meant by progress, what is meant by status, by achievement. We have to question. If we haven't done that, today is time to do that. And that's one of my missions, always raising these points in my talks. Particularly, there's another question of, I've already said at the beginning, the question of subjecting ourselves to Western values, Western influence, unquestionably. This is very, very serious. We have to pause and think. It's ruining yourself, it's ruining society, it's ruining the Asian culture, it's ruining Buddhism. Recently something happened to that teacher, I think you know that, and I don't want to go into it. I'm not qualified to go into all this. In this context, I want to bring another opposite example. I told you that when I was young, at one time I was in Los Angeles, right? I was there almost a year, something like 10 months, or I can't remember exactly, 10, 11 or 1 year. And that was after my experience in San Francisco. I went to Los Angeles too. Now in that place, there was a great master. In fact, it was because I read about him in the library while I was in San Francisco in that monastery that I decided that I wanted to go there and learn something from him. And he had the International Meditation Center, and he had what was called at that time the College of Oriental Studies, yeah? And then he had what is called Chùa Vietnam, there's a Vietnamese temple. and he was the spiritual head of that temple. This monk is interesting and inspiring. He got his PhD in Buddhist study from Japan. You can look him up, his name. I don't feel like naming him, but there's nothing wrong actually. Because I'm going to praise him. I'm not going to. But I'm saying that it's a real case, huh? Not a hypothetical case. So I could see all his effort. On the one hand, he was trying to settle out these Vietnamese refugees, and I found these people extremely sincere. I have a lot of warm feeling for the Vietnamese Buddhists. They looked after me, they really sincerely, very warmly looked after me, took care of me, appreciated me. I feel that I had not lived up to their standard even, but at that time I was more idealistic, and maybe it was a happier time. I lived there. I had told you the story. You can look up this account given, how I went there and how I started staying there. And then when I left that place, I wanted to study in India. They are the people who collected money to buy my tickets and all these things, you see. Anyway, very extremely sincere and warm people. Now, I wanted to say something about that monk as a kind of a opposite example. Now that monk is very interesting. He never forgot his own culture. He never forgot his own people. Even in America, even in Los Angeles, he wanted to help his people. That's why he was serving these refugees. That temple is let me see, I forgot, 2-story or 3-story. Quite long building, 2 sides, and full of Vietnamese refugees. And he was the head, right? And he had to look after them and solve their problems and stood up for them when things happened to them, and so on. And then he was teaching. He was teaching in, I think, the New York College or something, and he also was teaching in his own college. That's not a very well organized college, but they have a couple of good scholars. One was Leo Pruden, the one who translated the Abhidhamma Gosabhaja from French into English. You all have that, Before he published his translation, he was using his translation as seminar material to teach. I was one of those in his class at that time. Now, about that monk I told you, and then he also spent the rest of his time preaching Buddhism, including giving talks in Chinese temple, through translator, of course. He couldn't speak Chinese. He was a very religious person, and he told us several times that he was a believer in Pure Land Buddhism. Right? And he was saying, as he was getting older and older, he felt like he was nearing his last years. He thought more and more serious about the Western paradise, Pure Land. And I respected him. Now, among the Vietnamese Buddhists, he was also a little bit controversial, and he has a human side, he has human problems, and some of these Vietnamese were complaining about him. But interesting thing is that although these Vietnamese were in America, they held to their values. And they came to the temple all the time. Every Sunday there was service. I told you, I also spoke sometimes. I was invited to speak in English, and they translated what I said. And one thing is that this monk had a lot of feeling for his tradition, and not only for his communities, but for the Buddhist tradition, and he has very firm Buddhist values, even though he is controversial in other ways in his life and so on. He had some complicated relationship according to the Vietnamese people, you know. But another very interesting thing is that because he has deep feelings and people felt his compassion. They felt his compassion, one. Secondly, they felt his faith, two. Thirdly, they felt his sincerity. I remember there's one very talkative Vietnamese lady, very good English. She spoke very good English, and I think she already was able to speak English when she was in Vietnam. And she often confided in me, she talked to me. They all respect me very much. And I was very, very much younger at that time. You can imagine that. Basically what she said was, you know, our master, we have great love for him, but we are worried about him because he is being talked about, and sometimes he had to be careful. And, but we never say things outside, you know. And in fact, people say negative about our master. We always try to cover up and try to explain away. You see, this is not hypocrisy. This is love, and this is acceptance of the master as he is. You know, as a human being, as different sides, and they see the good sides. The good side become very inspiring, and that's enough. That's the more important thing. You see, so they can accommodate the negative sides. Basically, that's the situation. So she was telling me, you know, that we always, whenever people try to say something negative about master, bring up this and that, and we always try to explain to them, you know, and we always still have faith in our master, but except that I think he has to be more mindful, more careful, and things like that. So I felt that I'm quite touched because these people, this lay Buddhists, they were lay Buddhists. They understood Buddhism. They never forgot their traditional values. They know how to accept a human being. They know how to accept their master. They know how to look at the good side of the master. Not the negative sides. If you want to find negative side, every human being has, one way or another. You know, we have different genes, we have different hormone system, we have different psychology, we have different karma. How can we be perfect, right? But what is important is that whether the person has sincerity or not, whether the person has compassion or not, very, very important thing. But in the case of I want to pick the example of that person, that monk, is because they all felt his compassion. They felt all benefited from him. They were refugees, and he was always trying to shoulder their problem, to solve their problems, and then always trying to talk about the religions, and in spite of the fact that he got a PhD from Japan. In a way, it was good that he got a PhD from Japan, because Japan still has a traditional culture. And he went to the, I think the Zen tradition, but he eventually, as I said, he was into pure Buddhism. He got a PhD, I think, from Komazawa. Yes, Komazawa. So that's a Zen tradition temple, and they have the tradition there. And one thing good about the Japanese is that, you know, they are also to a large extent westernized, but very interesting. Their culture is a combination, clear combination of the West and the East, and they always keep the Western values, especially the Buddhist. They have never lost it. That's why they can progress. So when I couldn't have all these things coming to my mind the last couple of days, you know, when I contrast these two persons, that example in Beijing and that example in Los Angeles, the monk that I knew, you see, he was a monk, but in Los Angeles, that monk who told me, don't go away, because I translated for him in the Chinese temple. I was sponsored a green card, you know, and if you want to do a PhD here, we will arrange for you, and all these things. I didn't expect. He was one of the, he was the main one actually. And he said, I'm going to talk to the lawyer and how to do the immigration part of it. I was so firm at that time, no, I'm not interested in staying in America. I want to go to where the Buddha was. Huh? So, to tie up all these things, I think we have a mission to introduce the true Dharma to China. Of course, to the greater China also, where there are Chinese everywhere, but especially I think to China. They need it. You see? So that's why I said my concern is nothing about their political system. In fact, I worried about it. My concern is about the Chinese Buddhist culture. What they need today, you see, I mean, isn't that monk that I told you the example in China, isn't he learned? He's very learned actually. He was trained in the Chinese Academy, and he was the first of the batch who graduated from their research institute, and he was the youngest to become an abbot. He was promoted so quickly by the government, etc., etc. And he was a good speaker and writer. And he was able to, as I've said, inspire the very, very learned young people. Everybody flocked to him. Yeah? So about learning, about knowledge, he has all those things, all the qualifications. About skill, not like us. We are not very good in organizing things. He's a good organizer. He has vision. The only thing is seriously wrong in the vision. That is about imitating, about modeling on Western pattern of development. Of course, I said in conclusion, I just want to say that of course we must understand that even that person from different perspective, I think he has a good side. We have to respect the good part of it. But he still has very good motivation to want to promote Buddhism, even though not in the ways that we agree. We can't just, because of political conditioning, biases or our own judgment, we can't just look at all the so-called bad things that are dug by others about him. I think if he didn't have this vision and wanting to improve Buddhism, because he really felt that today China is modern, right? We need modern Buddhism now. That is a correct approach. Everything must be modernized. I don't agree with that. Huh? So therefore we still have to look at the person from different perspective. But one thing, whatever it is, I don't know the rights and wrongs. I'm not qualified to judge, but whatever it is, I just feel sad about Buddhism. And only one thing particularly sad is because all these things happen because Buddhist leaders, Buddhist teachers, and even the Buddhist general have been too much influenced by the Western model.